Hello and welcome to another chess video. This recording is in place of some classes because school has been canceled due to the coronavirus recently, and I still want my students to learn some chess over this little break. So for today's video, I'm showing a game of one of my students. I will be commenting on both white and black, so it doesn't really matter which side the student was. For anybody in my chess club, this is a game by Taylor, and there were many instructive moments. Both in the opening was well played by both players, but the middle game and the end game had a lot of really important learning points. I spent a good amount of time recording this, annotating this game, and now I want to show it to you guys. By the way, as I'm speaking, you can look at how I comment, and I highly recommend that you annotate your own games in as much detail. So I'm leaving the commentary, or my annotations over here, as an example for what your annotations should look like. But go ahead and we're going to go ahead and start with the game. E4, C5 is the Sicilian. Knight f3 and knight c6. If white chooses to go d4, which is the main line, this can go into the Sveshnikov Sicilian, which is Magnus's choice of openings if he plays a Sicilian defense, as he showed in the World Championship match. And if you go in Chessable, this is called the Magnus Sicilian, although the real name for it is the Sveshnikov. But white decided to play as if it was an Italian game, so white is just doing the normal Italian moves, which there's nothing wrong with that. This was a very important point, pawn to e5. So this is a playable move, and actually it's what I play when I go into these kinds of positions. But another option is bishop g7, not blocking in your bishop. So this is just how play can normally develop. White takes the center, as they usually do in the Italian. And after taking, the main line actually seemed to be taking with the knight, which looked a little weird to me. My first choice would be to take in the center and grab the big center. But here black strikes back. Right? And black is fortunate that his king does not run into trouble in the center. So like if you play rook e1, castles, and even though he took a little while to castle, he got out of the center safely. So that's one playable option for black. And if white takes with the knight and not the pawn, we can see this variation. D5 is also possible, by the way, in this position. But knight e7 is played, and you can go rook e1. But once again, black's king escapes from danger, and I see nothing wrong with this position for black. Notice the bishop is very strong, and it stops this bishop from developing easily. All that to say that that's just a different way of playing. But black went for pawn e5, which is just creating a clamp on this square. The downside is that this bishop will be a little bit of a bad piece because it's blocked by its own pawns. Knight f6 is playable, and it is played by many top players. But for me, my preference has always been putting the knight on e7, where it connects with the other knight, and it does not block the bishop in. So, also I find that the knight does not really have many squares to jump to once it gets here. But it is playable. Here, white created the pin, and he plays knight d5 to strengthen the pressure on the pin. This means that probably black had to go h6 at some point to stop this from happening. But now that we're here, this is the position, and white does have pressure. So black develops normally. Pawn h3, I like this move. It stops any bishop g4 ideas, and it prepares queen d2. Bishop e6, and here my student relieved the pressure, and this was a bad decision. So black is all tied up, black is pinned. You don't want to just trade pieces and ease the pressure. So you do not want to trade on f6. You want to keep the pin there. So you can basically play any move as white. You can play just a random move, but do not trade. The best move is queen d2. just keep the pressure. Um, and for example, the only way that black can try to get out of the pin is by giving up the bishop pair. So let's say he gets annoyed and he wants to just trade these things off. We just go bishop back. We create a square for our bishop, and we also prepare d4 at some juncture after we prepare it. And white has the bishop pair. It's a slight advantage, but it is an advantage. The line can continue like this, and white's very, very comfortable. Another really nice trap that I found was usually this is a move that that black wants to do so that he can get rid of the bishop pair for white. However, here there is a tactical blow that basically makes knight a5 impossible. So if black plays knight a5, black loses. Let me just show you how that goes. Knight takes f6, and you'll notice that the queen is overloaded. We trade everything, and this knight is hanging on a5. Note that when we played queen d2, this was one of the really deep points, right? So queen d2, when we played it over here, it prevents knight a5. The last thing is that we prevented pawn to h6, so it's very hard for black to unpin, right? So queen d2 would keep the pressure on. Trading all the pieces was a bad mistake, right? So first of all, remember how I said that black's worst piece was the bishop on g7. We basically just solved that problem for black. And in this position, trading helped black get rid of any passive pieces. Now he no longer has a bad bishop, and his pieces are free. So the position is completely equal. White played this sort of one-move threat, and then he went right back, so that's not good. More common in Italian structures, and you've already seen it multiple times in the video, it's a set of c3 and d4. Not right away, but to prepare that strategy. We're also stopping the knight from coming to d4. If black tries to break out right away, and by the way, he can equalize with this move. You can play queen b3, attacking both this pawn and the pawn on d7. And the thing is, if black finds rook d8, he's completely equal. If you take the pawn, we attack your queen. You can get this in-between move, but eventually you have to move your queen, and you lose the pawn on b2. So pawns are equal, and I would even say that this is slightly... I would prefer playing black here because these pawns are weak and targetable. So c3 is the way to try to push for the advantage, although I am admitting that pawn to d5 equalizes for black. And there are other ways to play. For example, you could just play rook e1 here if you want to continue keeping the pressure. You don't have to play queen b3. But okay. Knight g5, and we just went back. Okay, knight d4, nothing wrong with that. And I'm just going to stop at another key moment. c3. This is another place where white could have pushed for an advantage. Oops, let me just delete that. With f4. I mean, you should keep an eye on when your rooks are lined up with the queen. This is probably the most logical way to continue. And if he goes queen e7, you can continue pushing and making a wedge on the king side. We threaten pawn f6 and queen h6, which is checkmate. So he has to go f6, and now we play c3. And we basically get what we were striving for in the game, but we have this extra move pawn to f5 in, which helps us with a future kingside attack. Also, it has to be pointed out that if he just takes, we looked at queen e7, but if he takes, we can trade, and the double pawns, black is probably fine here, but it is white who will push for the advantage. Also, rook f1 coming to pressure the pawn on f7. Okay. He goes queen f4, and we traded. Okay, very instructional moment. I really like the move b5, by the way. It restricts the pawns. Pawn c4 is okay. And check out what happens. After he takes, there's one correct way to recapture. the correct way was not played, so this is the incorrect way. The best way to recapture is taking with the rook, because after trading, your rook is on the open file, your rook is active, it can go places. When you recapture with the pawn, your rooks are stuck behind an isolated pawn. So you took this pawn, you separated it from its friend over here. And now the rooks can basically be stuck defending. Pawn f5 was played, better was rook c6, and just doubling, and the pressure on the pawn is going to last for a very long time. Okay, so he traded, and we got a check-in, and we go here. Another move would have been king e6, just keeping the pressure, holding the pawns, not going forward yet, until we know that it's a good choice. And so white can get active on the 7th. We can trade some pawns, and this is very hard for white to hold because of the passed pawn. I'm not going to say it's losing right away, but in human chess, I mean, a computer might be able to draw this, but in human chess, this is very, very difficult to hold. That pawn is a runner. So anyway, he pushed pawn to f5. Oops. Why does this always happen to me? Okay. So let's just go through this very quickly. So his opponent played pawn f5. Rook c3, we got some checks in. Okay, and now we're in this position where we're stuck behind our pawn. D5 is a good move, exploiting the pin, and f3 trying to undermine. At this moment, black could have won on the spot. Pawn d4, this is not what was played. Pawn e3, and just the pawns roll through. There's no way to stop them. They will queen, and white loses. Instead, black captured away from the center, and just in general, when you have all these pawns together in the center like this, you don't want to split them up unless you're like winning on the spot. So you do not want to capture away from the center and split your pawns. Now, I mean, black is still better, but he had a clear win in the previous position. He captures here, and it's a very tough position for white. Yeah, it's still very bad. G4 is a good idea. He's trying to exploit the pin, and he wins a pawn. But after this, he's trying to protect this pawn passively. His last chance to defend was rook to f to c3. And really after this, he doesn't have a chance anymore. And the point is that you just want to make a blockade against the passed pawn. It's that important to block this passed pawn. You're even sacrificing your f pawn, but you want to stop that pawn from moving. We cut the king off so it can't support. And we were also threatening to come to d7. So that was blocked. And the game could continue like this. We get our king closer to the passed pawn. The king is cut far away. And yes, we're a pawn down. Yes, black has very good chances to win, but this is the best defense we could find. Instead, white moved his rooks away from the pawn, and now the pawn just runs. So he goes back, but it's very late now, and a pawn on the 7th like this is a dangerous animal. So goes rook d3. Now he's sacking the pawn, but you can see that we should have sacked it several moves ago because we're going to lose it anyway. So rook c3, just to show you, rook c3 in this position was preferable. Okay, so check, and really the game ended very soon. There's really no defense for white at this point. So he lost the rook, and the rest of the game, there doesn't need to be that much commentary. There were many more moves played, but eventually we got checkmate. Very interesting game. There's a lot to talk about here. The main takeaways for me were, okay, so there were some opening concepts. But the first point was not to trade pieces when you are the one putting pressure. If you want to get rid of pressure, then you want to trade. So black is striving to trade pieces to get rid of the pin. White should be trying to hold the pin. So a very important move here was queen d2, keeping the pressure on. Instead, we got an equal position here. Everything here was fine, but there were other ways to keep the pressure. So here, even in equalish looking positions, recognizing tactical motifs. Rook is on the same file as the queen. Open that, and that would have given more chances. Okay, and then at the end, this was a very key point. Especially in rook endgames, keep your rooks active. In general, you should keep your pieces active, but do not isolate your own pawns, and keep your pieces active. After this move, White's defensive task became very difficult, and in the end, Black managed to win the game. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I will be making some more. I hope you learned something, and I hope that Taylor has a chance to reflect on this game due to the video. Thank you, and see you next time.